What is going on, guys? It is Daniel Wright, and you are here listening to another episode of Paving the Way. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in this week. As always, we're rocking and rolling, and if you are watching this, you can see that I am throwing it freaking old school this week, and I am doing this from my computer, not from our media room. So the reason for that is because our entire office is under remodel right now. And what better place to store all of the stuff that needs to be moved out of offices into the media room that kind of mainly only gets used about once a week or so. And Randy is the only one who works in there. So it's a large room with only one person in it. So we stuff a lot of things in there. So that I can make sure I keep up with my promises to you guys and putting out an episode every week, I am just throwing it old school here today. So bear with me on if the audio is a little messed up or whatever it may be. I don't know. But we got a new office coming, conference room. Like our current office is getting turned into a conference room. Our new office is getting built across the hall, splitting another office in half, have a sales and an operations office. So got a lot of stuff going on around here. It's chaotic. On top of the fact that it's bidding and estimating season for the pavement industry, we are very busy. So guys, this week, what I want to talk about is some stuff that's been coming across my mind lately. And the topic of where is the bottleneck, right? We've all heard when it comes to leadership or business, or whatever it may be, that there's always typically a bottleneck. And on anything that you would think about that would be an example of a bottleneck, the neck is typically at the very top of it. In most businesses, teams, organizations, whatever it may be, oftentimes the bottlenecks are at the top. However, there are a couple of factors that can go into what makes the bottleneck. So it doesn't always have to be just the person at the top, the leader, the owner, the whatever it may be. There's some other factors that could go into play, such as, it could be capital, could be people, or it could be the leader. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome back. Thank you. Appreciate it. As I mentioned today, I want to talk a little bit about the bottlenecks of a team or of a business. As you can see, I'm kind of just chilling here talking about this. I don't have any notes this week. I don't have any bullet points, kind of going a little bit off the cuff, just because it's been front of mind. The reason it's been front of mind for us at our company recently, and truthfully about every year this time of year, and I know other people in our industry or in similar industries can relate, the beginning of the year is always just like wide open with requests, with opportunities, with bidding on proposals and scopes and meeting this person and this trade show and that event and whatever it may be. And you feel like you're just running 100 miles an hour in 100 different directions all the time. And when that happens, I start to reflect, right? I try to kind of think internally about what I may be doing to help cause some of these problems, but also ways I can help alleviate some of them. I also make sure I start to look around and see what things around us are causing some of these frustrations, these headaches, whatever it may be, these stresses that we're encountering. And then I sit and think about it. I'm like, well, there's got to be a bottleneck somewhere. What's the bottleneck? What is the thing that is stopping the upward momentum, in a wider range, hitting a bigger target, accomplishing more for our efforts? And the three big things that came to mind, like I mentioned before the intro, was finances, right? Capital to make decisions, people to do things, and the leaders that are in charge of those two things, people and finances. So if I kind of break those down, if we start with capital, right? Oftentimes businesses that are growing or teams that are growing, we'll just stick to more businesses for today's talk. Businesses that are growing oftentimes hit these pinch points where they get off the ground and they get some opportunities. They get some small projects, some small opportunities that, it's pretty low cost for them to accomplish it, whether it's cost of overhead, such as, their building they're operating out of, their payroll they have, taxes, insurance, whatever it may be, or even just the actual cost to do it, the labor to do the job or the materials to purchase to complete the project. the costs are oftentimes low. So you can start with these smaller projects and complete them. Then you get paid for them, and then you make the money, and then you can go back to the next one, and so on and so forth. Well, eventually there kind of hits a little bit of like a power band where like the projects start getting a little bit bigger. And so companies go through these power band growth cycles that they're getting bigger opportunities, but yet they don't necessarily have the capital and the funding to get them all done. Whether that means the people to do the estimating, the equipment to complete the work, the cash flow to pay for the materials, and so on and so forth. And so you go through these growth points where capital is the constraint, capital is the bottleneck. Now, I have been personally someone who really tries to minimize the amount of liabilities we have. Liabilities meaning debt, loans, SBA, all that crap. I try to keep it minimal. We do work with vendors with our accounts that we have. So we oftentimes have like net 30 terms. So we can go buy a whole bunch of materials, get a whole bunch of projects done, and then just pay off the account. So that's kind of just a little insight of how we kind of use our relationships with our vendors to make sure that we can still service our clients, but yet we're not getting ourselves into too deep of a hole that we're going to have to be paying back, a lot of interest and all that crap if we're doing loans and financing. But the capital, to my point, the capital can oftentimes be the bottleneck, because in our situation right now, as I mentioned, our bottleneck is getting all the proposals out. We need people, right? We recently hired a new sales estimator. He's in training, right? So he's training, he's working, he's learning how to do all this stuff. But at the end of the day, right, if we had unlimited capital, we say, hey, let's just go recruit the best sales estimators in our industry, get them on board and get them rocking and rolling. Well, then we could all of a sudden make bigger strides. I know that's a fairy tale example. It doesn't always work that way, but just bear with me for the example here. So that's how capital can become the constraint, okay? The next thing, which kind of I just hit on, is people. Because every business, unless you're just a one-man band or a single-person operation where you're just kind of maybe a consultant or a broker or whatever it may be, where you're just the organizer, right? You're collecting the requests, generating the pricing, giving them back to the client, figuring out, like, you're just the mover of things. Sure, you can do that with less people. Most businesses, if you think about most places you go purchase things, you do business with, you talk to, you work with, whatever it may be, most of them have a lot of people that do the things. Well, sometimes you don't have enough people for all the things that need to get done. So you find yourself, wearing multiple hats, or just one really big hat, right? If you're like the only person putting out proposals and estimates in your company, then that hat's going to get really big as you start getting more and more opportunities. Or if you're the person in operations that's getting things done, or you're the administrative person, whatever it may be, there's times where you're going to find yourself where you just need more people. You're just like, if only I had another blank, right? And there's a principle that I was taught at one point that says, if you have one, you need two. And so it means more or less exactly what it says. If I have one sales estimator, then I need two. Now there's two reasons for that, right? One is the obvious reason that if you only have one and something happens to that person, then you have zero. You're back where you started. So the second person is like an insurance policy. You have two people rocking and rolling. The other side to it, though, is if you have one, but you need two, and you get to that two, then you're setting yourself up for continued growth. You're not going to keep hitting that lid of not having enough people because you keep having more than what you may need right now. So that way you can take on the expanded growth and the opportunities that come about. However, right, as we go back to point number one of capital, sometimes some companies cannot just have extra people on their payroll if they don't have a need for it. So there's a balance, right? You got to balance the available capital and finances for your organization with the needs that you currently have and what makes the most sense. There will always be a point, though, that things are always out of balance. You're either having not enough people because you're trying to get enough work and opportunity and cash flow to hire the next person, or you're going to have too many people and you're going to need to make sure you have cash reserves and finances available to float your payroll and your expenses until you bring the business up to the point to give the same amount of work to keep everybody doing what they need to be doing. So there's always going to be a teeter-totter there. It's never going to be just perfectly even, right? As long as you're continuing with this growth strategy that I'm referring to here. The third and final bottleneck that we can oftentimes find is in us the leaders, whether you're the owner, the general manager, the operations manager, the sales manager, whatever you're talking about, your team, your business, whatever it may be. If you're the person that's in charge of the finances and the people, well, you're oftentimes the one who's going to be creating that bottleneck. And I can tell you right now from experience, being the person at the top, right? I don't like that term, but we all know what it means. Being the person in charge of everything here, I oftentimes find myself feeling like, well, I can do everything, right? And I've talked about this before, guys, about the importance of building a team and getting people on board and recruiting and delegating and trusting and empowering and all that. And all of that is absolutely true. And all of it is things that I strive to do my best at day in and day out. However, there is the natural inclination to jump back into, well, I got it. I can handle it. Oh, yeah, just give that to me. I'll get it taken care of. Throw it on my to-do list. Go ahead and remind me, tag me in it, whatever it may be. And you just keep adding and adding and adding and adding until eventually things start falling out the bottom. Now, when things start falling out the bottom, what does that refer to? When things slip through the cracks. So you start forgetting something. You maybe mess up on some sort of a detail-oriented task you're supposed to do, a proposal, a project, a briefing, whatever it might be. And you start letting things fall out the bottom because up on the top, it's too full. There's too much weight up there, so things start slipping and breaking. And so oftentimes the leaders, the people at the top of the organization, the top of the bottle, are the neck. They are the tightest point of constriction. And I think, from my experience and from what I'm learning and going through right now, I think the best way to overcome that is to continue evaluating the first two constraints, the capital and the people. Is there a place where we can hire more people? Where we need to hire more people? And is there capital available to be able to support those people, right? Because I can tell you right now, and I can feel like confident speaking for other small business owners, one of the biggest fears of being a small business owner is bringing people into your organization as part of the team. They leave a job they have, maybe it's their first job out of school, whatever it may be. They're trusting you with their livelihood. And one of the biggest fears that I personally have is bringing them in, and God forbid something happened with the business and their position doesn't work out. For whatever reason that may be, it doesn't matter. I will always feel like it was my fault, right? Unless they just walk out the door, unless they do something illegal or horrible or terrible to get themselves fired, I will always feel like it's my fault. Whether it's the economy, whether it's a cultural thing, whether it's a whatever it might be, I don't know. I don't really care. But as the leader of somebody, as somebody who cares, you're always going to feel like it's your fault. And so that's one of the biggest fears, is to bring people on and have that concern. I'm telling you right now, I could have all the money in the world in the bank and I would still have that concern, right? Because I care about people's well-being. But as the leader, it is also my responsibility to be evaluating those constraints, the capital constraints and the people constraints. If I'm taking inventory on the team that we have and I look around and I just notice that everybody is wore out, or there's a certain department that just constantly seems like they can never get their head above water and they're always behind on stuff, or they're dropping the ball on things, well, then it's my responsibility to figure out how do we alleviate that, right? The terrible option is to decrease your business and to take away responsibilities they have. That's a horrible idea. So we'll just throw that one right out. So the other option is to grow. The other option is to grow through people, grow through capital investments to your company. And so sometimes you're taking the risk. Sometimes you're dumping the money in that you have from your savings. There's other ways to grow through capital to allow for expansion that I'm not going to really get into because I don't personally like them. But nonetheless, there are ways that you have to be able to figure out how to grow and take some of that weight off your team so that they can grow too, right? Because if everybody's walking around every day just carrying all the weight of their department's responsibilities and they have no one that can help carry the load, that's how you get people to burn out, right? I mentioned earlier the stuff, when you get too much on your plate, it starts falling through the cracks and slipping and so on and so forth. That's all part of burning out. People get tired of missing deadlines. They get tired of forgetting to call people back. They get tired of messing up proposals, get tired of missing something on the schedule. And all that's happening because they're overloaded with work, right? So there's some companies where they have too many people working there, like that I mentioned earlier, and people get bored. They feel like they have nothing to do, right? They feel like they're just wasting time. There's no purpose, no meaning, no sense of accomplishment in their day-to-day lives. And then there's other companies that they don't have enough people and everybody's just bogged down. They're tired, they're wore out, they're exhausted, and they're starting to get discouraged because they feel like they're never going to reach a point of enjoyment. that it's always just going to be getting things thrown at you one way or another. Now, there's some people out there who thrive in that type of environment, right? They love coming into work, putting out the fires, accomplishing the goals, and going home and feeling like they just conquered the world. And they want to come back and do it again the next day. Great. That's fantastic. Find those people, keep them at all costs. Because if you are a growing business and organization, then you're going to need those people who can take on those tasks and make sure that they're in it to win it with you as the leader, right? So you have to make sure as the leader that you're constantly evaluating these things and making sure that you're looking out for the team, you're looking out for your clients, and you're looking out for the future of your organization. But most importantly, you have to make sure that you as the leader are not the bottleneck of your business. And I think that we all go through it. We all go through these moments where we are the bottleneck of it. No matter what size of business we are, no matter how big our organization is, unless you're some owner of the company who's just chilling out on your boat in the Bahamas or whatever you do. I don't know that kind of ownership, but unless you're just not involved in it, well, you're not really the leader of the company. Then you're just the owner. You just have the name on the tax return. But anyways, long rant there. But if you're involved in it, oftentimes we find ourselves as the bottleneck. So that's my encouragement to you this week. If you're finding yourself in just a tight pinch, you're feeling the pressure, you're feeling the friction, and you can't necessarily figure out why, it's probably going to be one of those three areas. It's going to be capital, lack thereof. It's going to be people, lack thereof, or it's going to be you, that you're trying to do too much and you're trying to hold on to everything and be the person to fix all of it. So evaluate those three areas, see if there's places you can make improvements, make investments, take some risks, some chances, and take yourself to that next level. Because the only way to get to the next level is to let go of the level you're at, right? You've always heard it before. You can't jump off the ledge with one foot stuck to the ground. So sometimes you got to take the leap, you got to go for it, you got to take a chance. But I hope that helps you this week. I hope it helps somebody you know. As always, guys, I appreciate the comments, the likes, the shares. This show is definitely growing. I mean, we're 146 episodes in now. We're picking up a little bit of traction, and I really enjoy it because ultimately, guys, one of my goals in my personal life is to genuinely try and help as many people as possible, specifically the people that I used to be, right? So the business owners that are trying to figure out how to get it up off the ground, the person who's working as a part-time job right now and wants to take it full-time to support their family. The individual who maybe is kind of a crappy leader, but they can get a lot of things done, but they can't build a team because they're a terrible leader. That's me, or that was me. Hopefully that was me. Hopefully it's not me anymore. But you know what I'm saying, guys. I want to help the people that are going through things that I've gone through. That's where the name Paving the Way came from. I want to genuinely help pave the way for the people coming behind me, trying to build the life of their dreams and teach the lessons along the way. Selfishly, all these episodes are going to live somewhere online forever unless somebody takes away the internet, and it'll be fun to look back on one day of the journey where we're at on February 25th, 2025. So, guys, I appreciate you, as always, tuning in. I'm liking these like 20-minute or so episodes. I feel like they're short enough to digest them really quick, but they're long enough that I can put some content and hopefully some valuable information in them. As I said, guys, my only request to you, if you found value in it, drop a comment, drop a share, something like that, show a little bit of engagement and help spread the word. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. As I mentioned earlier, we've got some remodels going on, so we'll definitely be showing that off on the social media channels and be proud as heck of that. So I'm looking forward to the expansion we got, the opportunities we got coming, and what all we're gonna accomplish. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Look forward to seeing you next week.